Quick one. Mina here. Thank you for watching this episode. I appreciate you. Thank you for all your support. One thing that you can do for me is to please hit the subscribe button below. I promise you that if you hit subscribe, I'm going to work hard to make sure that my episodes are really good, that will get better and better. So, do we have a deal? Okay, back to the episode. What are the biggest mistakes that you've made in business?
Wow. I've made a fair few, to be honest. Probably the one that sticks out and I talk about the most is they mostly relate to getting into areas that I imagine will be amazing, but I just don't have the experience and depth of knowledge in that area. And one of those situations was when I had my ad agency, and I still have it, I bought a client's business, which is a toy importing and wholesaling business. I've always been in services, selling service, B2B services, right? And this is a product business, importing, wholesaling, and retailing of children's toys. So quite different. But because I've always worked with retailers and selling and doing their marketing, I looked at this business as an opportunity. I didn't think it was being run as well as it could be. And I looked at it like a house. Oh, just buy it, renovate the kitchen, the bathroom, give it a lick of paint, and I can on-sell it and for a margin, so to speak. And staying with that analogy, this house had foundation issues. And I didn't discover that until I bought it. And those foundation issues mostly weren't systems, which I could easily look at. It was mostly around the inventory. So, and inventory is something that I wasn't used to dealing with because I'd only dealt with services.
Right,
So that business, to cut a long story short, that business ended up costing me around about $1.2 million over 24 months. I worked it out about being about $1 a minute, asleep or awake, for 2 years. And I learned a lot in that stage. I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about my relationships. I learned a lot about...
what did you learn about yourself?
That I was more resilient than I thought, and that you're good as long as you just wake up and just keep doing small steps, making small plans, just writing things to do today on a piece of paper. If you think about the whole problem and the thing that's... Because it nearly pulled down my other businesses as well. Thankfully, the bank was sort of generally understanding, but I ended up slowly, methodically walking backwards out of that business. And it wasn't the end of me, but it could have been if I had a different approach to the situation in front of me. So I learnt that I can keep a cool head in crisis, which I'm happy about. I learnt that even a huge mistake can be a life lesson, which I will never make again. I would have liked to think I could learn that lesson by going to a course, but probably not. So yeah, it's a life lesson, and we're all going to die one day, and it was an adventure.
If you get into that situation again, how different are you going to act?
Well, it first starts is around due diligence. Don't fall in love with the concept of having a business or owning a business and skip all the core details around the fundamentals of a business. I did have an accounting firm help me with my due diligence, and they did raise some warnings about the inventory, but they didn't reinforce them with me. And me being an entrepreneur, I was so in love with the idea of taking this business and renovating it and making it way better, because it was pretty crappy at the time. I thought I could do this a lot better. I jumped over a few core details. I should never have bought the inventory at cost. I should have bought it at fractions of cents in a dollar, because a lot of it was aged. It was what we call slob stock, and as a result, I've got a business that helps with that now. And so there was something that came out of the ashes of that.
How did you get up from that setback? How did you literally get it up?
How did I actually
survive
physically? I started out by removing all the costs that I could. I started out by having very frank discussions and honest discussions and being a good person with my landlords, and they thankfully were on board with what I told them. I was reasonable with them rather than hiding things. and they could understand that. They'd been in business themselves, or were business people. I did what I call asset stripping. I sold everything that wasn't bolted down that we didn't need, just for cash flow. And then I started talking to other people in the business and tried to see if they would want some of my stuff. And then I just found a buyer who would buy the brand and the business, and I got myself absolved of that situation before it really tanked me.
Look, what are the biggest mistakes business owners make today?
I think, like I said, they fall in love with ideas or concepts. We're all human beings with emotions, and we're influenced by what we see, and we think sometimes we're missing out on something, or we need to be doing this, without thinking the fundamentals, the practicalities of what they're trying to do. The other big mistake, and this is from my own lessons, is not understanding the structure of businesses and the differences between being shareholders and directors, having a proper shareholders agreement, understanding a market properly. In advertising, which I've got a background in, you see lots of business models, and some of them look really cool, right? You're like, wow, those guys are kicking it, right? I would like to be in that. They know what they're doing, and no business is as easy as it looks. If you're looking at somebody going, wow, they're killing it, and they're actually probably good operators running a good business, and they've got depth of knowledge. You're sitting there on the outside saying, I don't know anything about this business, but it looks awesome, I want to be in it. You're in dangerous territory right there. So do a little bit more DD on due diligence on what you're looking at. That's my thing. The good thing about getting older and a bit wiser is you get a little bit more slower to, a little bit more guarded, I suppose. When I was younger, I started my first company at 28, and you're sort of suitably commercially naive, and that's a good thing and a bad thing, depending on how you look at it. Being commercially naive about an opportunity means you get into it in the first place, and there's probably opportunities I took up that I wouldn't take up now, but I made them work because I just had to make it work. These days, with a bit more behind you go, no, I'm not doing that. That's not gonna work for me.
Could any 28-year-old listening now be able to be ready to start a business and not fail? Is it even possible
to start a business and not fail?
Yeah, at 28. I mean, some people are obviously more savvier than others, but I can only imagine if you are at 28, you're going to make lots of mistakes.
Yeah, the good thing is you've got time on your side to recover from your mistakes. The sad thing about starting a business when you're 60 or 50 is that, I mean, there's lots of entrepreneurs in their 50s. You make different mistakes, and you have different time frames on how to fix those. A 28-year-old might start a business without an exit plan, or thinking about what they're trying to build towards right. exit. They might just go, this is going to be amazing, and I'm going to build an income for myself. A 50-year-old's probably thinking about who is going to buy this business right from the start, because I need to have an exit. And that's a healthy way of looking at it, starting a business.
So this is a new concept, is thinking about the end before you start.
Yeah.
And for a 28-year-old and a 50-year-old, that applies both, right? Or what is your advice if someone is 28, 30, even 35, wanting to start a business? And what are some of the things that they should be thinking about first before they even start? And this could be like an entrepreneur, an SaaS, or
well, the saying that you're talking about is
or a marketing agency you've done.
Well, it's begin with the end in mind, and I've always had that right from the start. I think I learnt that way back before I even had my business. Begin with the end in mind. I have these sort of one-liners for myself, and you need to do that. It's like and that helps to structure how you want to build that business. I mean,
what were you thinking about when you started your advertising agency? Because I believe that you started it and you grew it to around how much?
Well, we got the actual ad agency to about 5 million, but then I bought a publication called Best Buys and from another company, and that was added around under 5 million to it. So it was about combined.
So about 10 million. Yeah. So you started that, grew it, and I think it wasn't over 7 years. You were talking about making that work, and you stepped back.
Yeah.
If someone wants to do the same, How do they get on it?
Well, yeah, you need to grow. You can't grow a business. This is obviously when people first start a business, they're the specialists. They know everyone. They've got the contacts, especially in a service, B2B sales business. You need other people to scale a business, especially a services business. And, that was a journey. I was lucky because previous to starting my agency, I had been managing other people as well. So I'd learned some management skills, care of an employed relationship. So when I started my business, it was just me, but then I was quickly knew that I had to get other people to help me to scale because you can't do everything yourself. And what I learned when I was trying to step out of the business and work more on the business and in the business is it's better to hire people for the role before you want them to go into it than straight into a role. Because then you can, let's say you want a general manager running one of your businesses. It's better to hire them as a senior salesperson and observe their behaviour in that lower role on a lower pay packet probably with an incentive if they do the right things to move into general management after a given period of time. Plonking someone straight into a general manager's role, you don't know them, you've interviewed them a few times, you've got some references, put them in charge of one of your businesses, you're kind of like, you're throwing all your money on black really.
Is that true? Really, so sort of a bit of an experience there for you?
Yeah, multiple times.
So you had,
and if you speak to any other business owner when they're talking about stepping away from the business, there's probably talking about throwing all your money on black. There's probably around a 50% failure rate. Some people have got it down pat because they've probably had experiences where they've learnt from that. Again, you could go to a course about stepping away from your business and how to hire a general manager, but the facts of the matter is people are people, and you're the CEO or you're the founder running a business and you're trying to give somebody else your baby to run. There's
like
issues.
Looking at, yeah, true.
There's a number of things that have to happen from both sides, and that is a human dynamic, and human beings, emotions, objectives, feelings, all that sort of stuff. It can go terribly wrong if you're not clear about a number of things and your business, the structure is not right as well. So I learned some lessons. I've had some excellent successes with hiring people. I don't know how many people I've hired over the years. It's probably well into a couple of hundred over different businesses. And yeah, I think I'm better at that than the average, but I am definitely not 100% on it. And my advice to anybody who's trying to delegate is to get somebody into the role before you fully secure them in it and give them all the responsibilities. So let's see what they're like as an operator, see if you can work together, that sort of stuff. You can't test people out in a role. You have to sort of put them in, but you can put them in a role before it.
I would love to get into the scaling part. How did you do it? And are you still scaling? Okay, 12 hours of conversation and then we've got the answer. Scaling a business is really tricky because it's all about like fine timing, isn't it? Like a lot of businesses coming, therefore we need to hire, or a lot of businesses about to come, therefore we need to hire. It's the timing. How did you guys do your hiring? How do you time stuff? Or were you like, oh, we just don't know, we just do it?
To start with, very ad hoc and very mishmashed, whatever that word is. That's about exactly how it was. And I mean, to start with, it was very much, we have too much work and we cannot do this and we need to hire somebody. But then we got to a point where we were anticipating growth and then we were having to hire people to anticipate for growth. And sometimes when we did that, we got it completely wrong and we had too many people. And then there were times where we got it completely wrong and we didn't have enough people. So there is definitely a fine line. I think understanding the data is definitely one of them, and understanding productivity levels. And then on top of all of that, you don't want to overwork your team. You want to make sure that they're also growing. So they don't want to be doing the same thing for 5 years. So you've got to be doing, delegating and elevating them into roles that they want to be doing. Then you need to get other people to come in and do this other work. So we haven't always got it right, and we've got it wrong a lot of times.
When you do not get it right, when you do get it wrong, that's what I'm interested in. And not because I delight in your mistakes, but people listening going, oh my gosh, this is the problem that I am in right now. She's been in my problem. How did you do it? And I want to figure out, maybe I can get little pearls of wisdom from you. So when you did have, let's say, lots of people in your team and there was not work, what did you do? And the same thing, like when you had so much work, very little, and it was really pushing at like you just too much. How did you do it?
Yeah, well, I guess when you've got not enough team members, clients complain. Or even not enough team members, but not the right people in the right seats. And I've had that where, you know, we've got some jobs, clients have come in, we've promised that we've been able to deliver something, and then suddenly the team that you thought was going to be able to deliver can't deliver. I've had that. It was really bad.
So you had it's a ripple effect.
Yeah. One time we lost about $250,000 worth of work because of one person who we'd hired on all sorts of promises that they could do something that they actually could not do. And it always comes back to us as the owners. So one, we didn't hire right. So what did we do wrong? You know, we took basically a recruitment agency's promise that this person could deliver. We didn't really jump in and ask the right questions. We didn't test them to make sure that they could do it. You know, so a whole bunch of promises, but really no proof that they could do what they could do. So we've tightened up our recruitment process. And yeah, we don't just leave it to a recruitment agency. And then also just now we've got all of our metrics and we can really see clearly. So sometimes you'd hire someone, it'll be after the 90 days, you don't even realize that actually they can't do what they're doing. Now that we've got all of the metrics and we can see, it's very clear early on. So you can have those conversations that you need to have, the training that you need to do. And some of the other things that we've done wrong is we've hired people who haven't quite had the skill set, but we actually have not had either the processes and the training or the capacity of our own time to get them to where they needed to get to. And so some people, when you get them to jump into the deep water, some will swim, some will not, and some do not like that environment at all and can end up in a way worse situation. And yes, from a business perspective, not good. But what I don't like personally is the place that it puts them, because suddenly they feel like they're failing. Suddenly they've got mental health issues, and actually that's my fault because I haven't looked after them, cared for them, given them the environment that they actually needed to be successful, because I think most people want to be successful, and it's up to us as business owners to help them to be successful. So if they're drowning, if they're not doing well, I've either not hired right or I've not supported them in their journey. So yeah, we've had lots of kind of issues. And then when you have too many people, like what happened in COVID. So in COVID we lost...
too many people.
Yeah, in COVID we lost a 6-figure contract with the government, and suddenly I had to let go of 2 people. One resigned because they couldn't do the work from home anyway with their family circumstances. So that was a little easier. The other person, we had to go through the redundancy process, and super hard, especially when everybody is struggling already and then they're struggling to find another job afterwards. So lots of counselling support and stuff around, as well as whatever else that we could have done to help them. But yeah.
You've got a team in Samoa.
I do.
How exciting is that?
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's very challenging being in a different country, but it's very cool.
I mean, I hear a lot of people having offshore staff in places like Philippines. You know, we were talking about that the other day. And out of all the countries, Samoa, what challenges, I suppose, reflecting on that journey, most unexpected challenge that you've faced in that space? And how did it reshape your perspective?
Yeah. the biggest challenge that we've had in Samoa in particular is the lack of understanding of what outsourcing is.
Mm-hmm.
They're a country that exports taro, they're all product based. And when you tell them that you're outsourced, they don't get outsourcing of services. They don't get, I export people's brains or people's services. Just look at me very blankly like I don't understand. and the problem is that that's not just in the community, like that's a government level. Some people in government get it and some people don't get it at all. And so it can be very hard to get allies on your side when I'm not in country all the time. My husband was born there, which is why we decided Samoa. And it aligned with our kaupapa. We were outsourcing to India, and I said to my husband, this doesn't fit. We talk about how we're here for Māori and Pacific people, and we're sending our work and our money offshore to India. So we set up in Samoa because the infrastructure was there, and the person we were talking to at the time who was in government got it. So when we're trying to get funding or just opportunities or conversations, it can be very difficult when there's this complete lack of understanding of what actually we're about, and then also trying to educate potential team members around what we're doing. And you're not actually doing Samoan accounts for Samoan businesses, you're actually doing accounting for New Zealand businesses. So just that whole education piece around what even outsourcing is, it's been a challenge.
Do you still have a team in Samoa?
Yeah, still have a team. Still going strong.
What's your vision on that? Is that something that you would love for it to grow, or is it something that you see it as a short-term project and then you might end it later?
It's actually an area that we're going to focus more on. So I've spent probably the most of the last 12 months focusing in that area, and Ellie's starting to move more into focusing on the outsourcing as well. And we're in conversations and setting up businesses also in other countries. So across the Pacific, we've set up our company in Fiji. We haven't started hiring there yet. Outsourcing is really big in Fiji, which is awesome. That kind of happened after we'd started in Samoa. So I'm like, oh yeah, see, we were onto something. But then we're going to also grow outsourcing into other areas. We might still do some work in India and the Philippines, but we're looking at other countries in the world that can bring us something that's a bit different to what's currently being offered in the market. But no, we're definitely going to stay doing outsourcing. It's going to be the way for business. I think with everything that's happening at the moment, and especially in the New Zealand economy, there is a lack of, there is a shortage of staff members in particular industries in New Zealand. A lot of people are leaving to go to Australia. And I really feel like businesses are going to need to look after their current team members. They're still going to want growth, but I think business is still going to be tight for a while. So they're going to need to have something done or some sort of work that's going to be done that they're not going to be paying a lot of money for, that they don't have the AI capabilities for or want to get into AI with yet or whatnot. So I feel like more businesses in New Zealand are going to start to outsource some of the, administration-y type stuff, or the things that are a little bit easier can be done offshore or remotely, so that the current team can do more of the face-to-face stuff, the selling, or the adding value, just really helping their customers to see the value in their product or their service so that they continue to buy from them, because it's going to be so important, particularly over this next 12 months. Australia, they're all out, not all of them, but, big in outsourcing in Australia. They don't really bat an eyelid. Whereas here in New Zealand, they're so worried about the impact it's going to have on other Kiwis and, are you going to take jobs away from other New Zealanders? That's not really the idea. The idea is to fill a role that you can't find here, or that it can help to support the team that you already have here. So your team don't want to be doing some of that stuff.
Yeah. But it has enriched your business, having people being outsourced from places like Samoa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So not really heard of that much in the accounting industry, but we'd already done 75% of our work before the end of September. I spoke to an accounting firm yesterday that aren't even at that, and it's already almost the end of the financial year. We're already over 90% of our accounts filed. So my team are now adding value. They're doing budgeting and they're doing business planning sessions and advisory work and working with clients now. Whereas a lot of other accounting firms are still trying to get tax returns done so that they can meet the 31st of March deadline. So it's definitely helped. And my team would much prefer to sit down with a client and explain the numbers and help them and to support them than to be sitting at their computer typing up a whole bunch of numbers and making sure everything balances on zero.
Quick one. Mina here. Thank you for watching this episode. I appreciate you. Thank you for all your support. One thing that you can do for me is to please hit the subscribe button below. I promise you that if you hit subscribe, I'm going to work hard to make sure that my episodes are really good, that will get better and better. So, do we have a deal? Okay, back to the episode.
My first purpose in life was financial freedom. So it was about me. I was at the center of it. I achieved it, and it kind of messed me up a little bit. It kind of left my life in a little bit of disarray because it's the whole, if you achieve the thing that you were sent here to do, what do you do next? And so I was relatively young. I was in my early 40s, and I'd sold my first company and I'd invested wisely in some things. And so I had my monthly income objective, the number that I'd visualized, me seeing be generated from my assets. I'd achieved it. And it was a great lifestyle amount. And so I then started to question, what does it all mean? What's it all about? Now, that's a beautifully privileged position to be in, and I really, really acknowledge that. And it's a really hard process to go through. What it led me to realize and understand is that if you're lucky to get to that position, then the focus is much more positively shifted to other people. So you note that my purpose, as I said, to grow great people.
Of course, yeah.
That's denoting people, broadly speaking. I'm a person, you are a person, the people that I work with and that I associate with and I invest with, they're all people.
Right.
But if I can encourage them to become better at whatever it is that they care about, then the world will become a better place. So
decisions. I want to know, you were talking about decisions and I had so many other questions. What are some of the worst decisions you've made in business?
Yeah, I've made quite a lot. So I'll talk about an investing one to start with. To put a lens across it, I did this Tony Robbins thing, kind of 2000. I started investing in equities in the mid 80s. So I was investing in the stock market pre-crash and lost most of my money, but not my original capital that I went in with. Really great, strong lesson to me. But I missed the original kind of tech rise that happened from about 2001, 2002. And I came across Amazon at that time, and I didn't invest in Amazon. So that was a terrible decision. That stock became I think a 50 bagger, 50 times the investment amount that you'd put in there. So that was a bad decision. I was focused too much on growing my own businesses and investing in startups, as opposed to recalling that there was this wonderful mechanism that's called the US stock market, which, for a period of time there, maybe not so much into the future. We know how much overweight the US stock market is towards the top 7 tech stocks, Amazon and Facebook, Microsoft, etc. Take those out. Most people's gains over the last 5 years look very average. They go back to the 7% per year that you can expect to get from the S&P 500. But we've had this outsized return from that period. So early on in business, I didn't acknowledge the importance. Remember, I was talking about leadership, and I focused too much on my own objectives and my own needs and not enough on those of my team. And so I lost a couple of really, really good people early on who were dedicated and focused.
So what was that decision? Like, did you not acknowledge their input, or was it not paying them enough? I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, what were the specifics of a decision, if you were not willing to share? Because when people listen to these things, go, I was almost going to make that mistake. And I just listened to Josh and I thought, I'm not going to do that because that was not good. So I learned from him. So I want to find out, what is it that
drove them too hard without giving them the structure and the tools to enable them to succeed. So And I'll give some context around that. So the success that I experienced early on in my career was based upon me having the initiative and the gumption to go out and find the tools to succeed. And so I was very much left alone. I was independent. And that was probably a consequence of the time to a degree as well. It was like, here's your target. Best of luck. And that was kind of leadership back in the 90s.
And you just left them. Yeah.
Exactly. And the theory was that the strong will thrive and survive and the rest will leave, and that's okay. And so, rightly or wrongly, my growth and the books that I was consuming in those days were not on leadership. That came for me later, once I acknowledged the importance of team.
Right.
It was more about mechanics of business and investing and making money, but none of those were leadership things. And so I had a couple of 3 people that could have been great with a little more support and a little more structure around them. Funnily enough, that then led me, once I realized that was probably the right formula, to hiring people that were very bright but not that motivated. And that was another mistake that I made. There's a matrix that's been built, like an XY matrix from McKinsey, and it's the will-skill matrix, the will and skill. So you have will, which is, motivation on one column, and then skill on another one. I add to that now values, by the way. So I have a Venn diagram of 3 of those things. Really critical to understand alignment with someone's values you bring into your business, or as an investor or as an advisor, whatever it might be. The skill or the competency of that individual and the motivation of that individual. And it's got to be appropriate for the role. I use an example of having a super highly motivated but a low capability support person, like someone who's an administrator, for example. You could be a wonderful administrator and fulfill that role incredibly, but if you want to have aspirations above your station and you get promoted into a role that you're incapable of doing, you hit what's called the Peter principle, which means that you rise not to the level of your competence, but the level of your incompetence. So you come up and you rub against the ceiling, and you're promoted above that, you'll fail above that level unless you continue to invest in your growth and you understand the things that you can do to support the success in that particular role. So back to the will skill matrix, I was finding people that were highly skilled, intelligent, very bright people that didn't have the motivation. It turns out that it's very hard to motivate someone. They need to motivate themselves, like driving motivation into other people. And that's a really critical lesson, by the way. If you have people that are in revenue generating roles, salespeople or performance marketers or traders, people that are making money for the company, but there is a number that you can attach to them. And my belief and experience is that they need to be highly motivated. CEOs need to be highly motivated. They need to be. So those are some of the bad decisions that I made. There's some other investment decisions that I made that haven't worked out terrifically well.
What's your biggest failure, do you think?
What's my biggest failure?
That is not really failure, clearly, because failure is lesson. In my view, failure is having a good lesson and you learn from it. But at the time, you might have thought that this would have been a massive failure, a massive setback in terms of business. What could that be?
Yeah. There's 2 that spring immediately to mind. So the first is that I didn't do a great job in my first marriage. So that's me being quite personal here, but it is relevant. And, the growth things that I was consuming in those days before and during my marriage were still a little bit about leadership, a lot about making more money, a lot about investing. Philosophy came into the mix as well. But I wasn't focused enough on being a better human being. And as a consequence, my marriage suffered, and I was also too focused on work as well. So I wasn't spending enough time or enough energy on that relationship. And back to the observation before that I'm a fiercely independent person, that was at the cost of the relationship as well. I've taken that lesson into my now marriage, and it's a very, very different situation. So that was one. Another was that I got into a business with someone that had a very different values set to me. And once the values differential became clear to me, I didn't extricate myself as quickly as possible from that relationship. I spent another 6 to 9 months to try and encourage that person into the same place that I was existing in, and they didn't want to change. Values is one of those much talked about, but not terrifically well understood things. You know, they're the critical building blocks of our decision making and how we live as a human being, and the frame of reference that we have for the world, and you know, everything's laid upon it. Your values can change, but you need to want them to change, and it's not the easiest thing in the world to go through that. And so sometimes people's values change through external events, death of a loved one, illness, relationship breakup. Those are kind of the three things that will lead someone to have a bit of a look in the mirror moment. But unless those things have happened, or if they go, do you know what, I'm just not happy with the person that I'm being or how I've been living my life, then those are the two things that will lead to a values change. And so spent a lot of money and, you know, had a painful experience in getting out of that business.
How can an organisation let you go if they really want you to work for them? Why would they let you go back to travel and then you would come back and they'll have like a nice job waiting for you going, yep. Well, like, I don't know, it sounds a bit too idealistic. Give me the real deal here.
Look, I made a lot of mistakes along the way, and I think we talk about
what were they?
Opportunity. I mean, when I left Bailey's, Bailey's back then was a big franchise business. There were a lot of franchises around the country. Now, while still a franchise business, we're a lot smaller number of franchisees and a lot bigger and a lot more cohesive. But at the end of that first stint, I was a franchisee. I owned part of a business. And I got way too ahead of myself. I was aggressive in growth, ambitious in investing in new markets and new opportunities.
Can I just pause you out there and maybe get into that a little bit more? You were saying a franchise owner or franchisee. So where was the franchise? Why did you buy it? What was the thinking behind it? Why do you think you were too ambitious?
Yeah, so the opportunity came to me. It was up in Whangarei, and the owner, a guy by the name of Gary Caldwell, who had been in the business for a long time and was looking to step back. And as you will pick up with Bailey's, they're very big on promoting talent from within and finding what we call that bench strength to come through. So when Gary decided that he was looking to step back, there was an opportunity. Who would like to go and step into that role? I was born and bred in Whangarei. I'm a Northland boy. That is still today is what I call home. So when an opportunity came up in my own hometown, opportunity meets demand, meets where I was where I thought I was at that time in my career, and that's why I jumped into that opportunity. What was the mistakes? I think I wanted it to all happen way too quickly. It's probably something I still need to learn 20 years later. Is to slow down and bring more people along the journey, and to make sure that they are more sustainable decisions around growth and not just jumping it.
I want to zoom into that and get into the wanting to get things done too fast, wanting to get the right people on your team. If someone listening to this going, actually, this is something that I struggle with and I'm in the middle of it right now and I just don't know how to get out of it. Can you walk us through that specific example of wanting to get things done too fast and then how do you know that you were going too fast? What were the indicators that you're going too fast? Please slow down. Did you get a mentor? Did you get a business course? Did you start losing sales? How did it look like?
Yeah, it's a hard one to answer because often you can't see it until it's actually. I wouldn't say too late, but you know, the opposite side to this is ambition, and we want to encourage ambition in all of our people. So we don't want to be going so slowly and not taking risks and not wanting to invest in people because we're so wanting to get everything lined up in a row before you even start.
That's right. Yeah.
Yet on the other side, you don't want to be, ready, fire, aim, which is something we talk about. That kind of.
Yeah.
So achieving that balance, I think, is more about the people rather than maybe indicators. It's about having the time to listen and spend more time, 2 of these and 1 of these, to your people, and actually being able to read, that we talk a lot about that EQ and reading that mood of people. So I don't know that I've still got it right. I don't know that there is an answer. But I think having a group of people around you, whether they're, as you say, whether they're a mentor or a coach, whether they're a colleague or whether they're even your own team, but to have a high level of trust and a high level of engagement where you've got people who've got each other's best interests at heart that can say, hey, why don't we just kind of keep going on this one, but maybe we'll just hold off over here for a bit.